After coaching more than 200 founder CEOs, I can usually tell in 10 minutes if you're the bottleneck. Not because you're bad at CEO work, because you've become the place every decision, every standard, every bit of context lands. I've scaled 2 companies to a 30 million run rate. I've lived this stage myself. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 ways you've become the bottleneck and the changes that give you your week back and let your senior team run the business without it wobbling. The 5th one is the one most founders don't see coming. It's also the one that quietly is costing them their best people. Decisions, quality, your calendar, what's stuck in your head, and culture. If you're between 50 and 100 employees, there's a phrase I hear on almost every first call I take. I've become the bottleneck. It's approvals, decisions, and escalations from people you pay to handle them. Not I'm working too hard. Not we need more process. Specifically that. I've become the bottleneck, which is confusing because on paper, you've got a senior management team. You feel it too, you've just not said it out loud yet. The founders who break through don't have better instincts than you. They just stop making themselves the operating system. The ones who don't make this shift don't crash. They plateau. Revenue stalls somewhere between 8 and 15 million. The best people leave quietly for somewhere else. And buyers mark you down the moment they realize the business is just one person. Here's the scene with senior people you're paying to decide. Your head of sales sends a Slack message. Should we go with standard pricing or custom on this one? It's 9 a.m. You answer, and you move on. At 11, your head of ops emails. Do you want to approve the contractor hire or wait until the meeting? Each of these takes you 90 seconds, but across the week, decisions like this land on your desk somewhere between 20 and 40 times. And that's before you count the ones that shouldn't even reach you. You become the switchboard for the whole company. And here's the real cost. It's not the 90 seconds, it's what your team learns. They learn that bringing you a problem is safer than making the wrong call. So they stop making calls. They get very good at making things urgent enough to justify the ping. And that's where your day gets chopped into 10-minute fragments. What to change? This week, keep a tally. Every decision that hits your desk, write it down. By Friday, you'll see something obvious. Most of them fall into 5 or 6 categories. For each category, answer 3 questions. Who owns this? What does good look like? At what threshold do I actually need to be involved? That's a 1-page list of who decides what. Call it whatever you want. It doesn't need to be a 20-page document. It just needs to exist. Because your team isn't waiting for your permission. They're waiting for your clarity. The next one's sneaky because it sounds like high performance. You open the client proposal your head of marketing sent. You read the opening paragraph, you close it, and you start typing from scratch. You're on a Zoom with a client and you hear your account manager start to explain your process. So you jump in just to add some color. Or you send a 300-word email to fix a problem your customer success lead handled with a 40-word response that made it worse. And every time you do this, your team learns one thing. If I wait, the founder will fix it. Kim Scott calls this ruinous empathy in Radical Candor. You care personally, but fail to challenge directly. The rescue feels like kindness. Your team experiences it as a clear signal about what's expected of them. The result isn't laziness, it's rational adaptation. They start sending you 70% drafts because finishing it themselves carries the risk. The embarrassment of watching you redo it, waiting for you carries no risk at all. So what to change? This isn't about caring less. It's about protecting your standards by making them teachable. Stop explaining your standards. Show them. Pick one output your team constantly struggles with. Client proposals, weekly updates, sales calls, whatever it is. Find or create 3 examples. One that is genuinely excellent and write down why. One that's good enough to send and mark the line. One that falls below what you'd accept and explain what makes it fail. Now your leaders can coach without you. They're not guessing what you do. They're working from experience. They're working from evidence. You can't delegate quality, but you can document what it looks like. You went on holiday last summer, told yourself you'd check in once a day at most. By day 2, you were answering Slack. By day 4, you were on a call. By day 6, you'd effectively never left. When you got back, nobody said, "Oh, we missed you." They said, "It's like you weren't away." That's the tell. The business didn't run without you, not because your team is weak, because the operating rhythm was never designed to work in your absence. You're in every important meeting. Every priority resets on your Monday. Every significant client conversation has you on it, because at some point that became the norm and nobody ever questioned it. Porter and Nori at Harvard Business School found that the average CEO spends less than a quarter of their time on strategic work. Once your presence becomes the rhythm, that ratio only gets worse. So what to change? Take your calendar from the last 4 weeks. Go through every recurring meeting. For each one, ask one question. Does this meeting require me, or have I just never taken myself out of it? Sort them into 3 piles. Meetings that genuinely need you, my leadership team could run without me this week, and meetings that shouldn't exist at all. Then set a weekly meeting rhythm. Same day, same time, every week, with you optional. Something like this: Monday 9 a.m, leadership huddle, 15 minutes, owned by the COO or your head of operations or whoever is your partner. Wednesday 2 p.m, pipeline review, 45 minutes, owned by your head of sales. Friday 10 a.m, cash and numbers review, 30 minutes, owned by your finance lead. 3 meetings, 3 owners, none of them need you in the room. The goal isn't to disappear, it's to make your presence a choice, not a structural dependency. If your business stops when you stop, you haven't built a business, you've just got a job. Picture this: your new head of sales handles a price exception in the way you used to handle it before you quietly changed your position 18 months ago. You never wrote it down. Your head of customer success escalates a complaint that you'd have resolved in 2 minutes using an approach you worked on after nearly losing a client 3 years ago. Nobody else was in the room that day. The lesson stayed with you and went nowhere else. Every policy change, every hard lesson, every nuance about how your business actually works is stored in your head, which means it leaves the building whenever you do, and nobody else can get to it. In founder-led businesses, that person is almost always sitting at the top. And in any M&A process, that's one of the first things a buyer flags. Acquirers call it key person risk, and they price it in directly. A business that lives in one person's head is a business that's worth less. So what to change? Identify the 3 situations where your team most often comes to you for guidance. For each one, record a 10-minute loom. Walk through how you think about it, the concept, the principles, the mistakes you've made, and what you learned. Don't make it perfect. 10 minutes, phone, camera, done. Stick it in a shared folder your leaders actually use. You're not building a knowledge management system, you're just extracting the manual for your business out of your head before the absence of it becomes everyone's problem. The most valuable thing you can do this quarter isn't close a deal, it's document what's in your head before it becomes a liability. The week you had a difficult board meeting, 3 people asked you if you were okay. You hadn't said anything, you'd shown up, you'd run your normal meetings, but they'd noticed. At this stage, your team reads you. The energy in the Monday morning calls tracks yours. The pace of the week tracks yours. Whether people feel confident or anxious about what's coming tracks yours. That's not a bad thing, it's leadership. But if you're the only source of energy, confidence, and psychological safety in the business, you've got a fragile culture, because you're carrying more right now than most leaders ever carry, and eventually it shows. The week you're flat, decisions slow down, senior people start hedging, your best operator quietly updates their LinkedIn. The cost isn't dramatic, it's a slow tax you pay every time you can't show up at full power. Google's Project Aristotle studied 180 internal teams and found that psychological safety, the belief that it's safe to speak up, take a risk, and say uncomfortable things, was by far the most important predictor of team effectiveness. More than talent, more than process, the teams that performed best weren't the ones with the most capable individuals, they were the ones where people felt they wouldn't be punished for being honest. That climate doesn't build itself, and it doesn't survive on one person's energy. Behind every business that falls apart when the founder steps back is a culture that only ever ran on the founder's energy. And so, what's to change? Look at your leadership team. Be honest about each person. Does this person increase the energy in the room, or do they manage it down? Then ask, have I actually been clear about what the culture looks like here? Not a values document, in observable behavior. How do we run meetings? How do we handle conflict? What do we tolerate and what we don't? Because here's the thing, culture exists in every business. The question is whether you designed it or it happened by accident. Reed Hastings and Patty McCourt made this explicit when they wrote the Netflix Culture Deck in 2009. Over 100 slides laying out exactly how Netflix expected people to behave, what it rewarded, and what it wouldn't tolerate. It became one of the most widely shared business documents in history, not because it was radical, because it named something most founders had never bothered to write down. Your job isn't to be the energy source, it's to build leaders who generate their own. So, 5 bottlenecks. Decisions that flow to you because nobody has a clear authority map. Standards that depend on you because you've never documented what good looks like. A calendar that holds the business hostage because your presence became the rhythm. Context locked in your head that nobody else can access. And a culture that runs on your energy because you haven't built leaders who generate their own. This is why your senior team still can't run the business. None of these are failures. Every founder at this stage is dealing with versions of them. The ones who break through aren't more talented. They're just willing to be honest about this sooner. How long have you known you're the bottleneck? And what are you waiting for? 12 months from now, one of 2 things will be true. Either you'll have done this work and the business runs without you in the room, or you'll be in the same Slack threads, the same approvals, the same tired Sunday night, having lost another year of compounding to a problem you already knew you had. If you recognize yourself in any of this, especially if you're nodding at more than 3 of them, I run a free 45-minute call where we map out exactly where you're the bottleneck and what has to change first. You leave with a 1-page diagnosis, the top 3 changes to make first, in order, and what each one buys you. No prep required from you. Link is in the description. This is the work behind running a £10 million business in 2 days a week instead of 7. How to build a leadership team that makes that possible. The next video covers the 5 traits I look for in every senior hire at this stage. That's where I'd go next.